think they have to be smart in terms of picking up heroes that doesn't have this big game-changing ultimate that benefits Team Flash as well. So Team Flash, ignoring the Kufra, went to ban the Matilda instead. Something I would like to point out from the side of Team Flash is they've consistently picked and banned the Phobias all across the board. This is something that only Slate has done throughout MPL Singapore and, of course, JPL, going back to that comfort show.
I was kind of expecting that Slate would actually go for something more of a soft support, especially since JPL actually have been playing quite a lot of soft support coming into MPL Season 4. And not to forget that FMM, especially playing as 1-1, it would be great if you were to fully utilize as much resources as you can to really babysit this 1-1 as much as possible, right? Since you would want to give the 1-1 the perfect game in the early stages, so that even in teamfight, 1-1 is a special case where you don't have to babysit or look after a 1-1 in a teamfight because she is rather self-sufficient.
Now, when you mention that, that becomes scary, right?
Yeah.
Because now with a Marsha, it is harder for the 1-1 to be self-sufficient.
Oh, damn.
Team Flash is gonna round off this draft with a Lolita as well. We know Kayzeepi is a beast, absolute beast on this hero as well, being able to pull off those huge ultimates and set up for the team. So this is really all in here from Team Flash. They have the Julian for the setup, they have the Lolita, and then you have Pokemon with that huge blazing duet going in. Down to the last pick here for Slate though.
Yeah, Team Flash, I think this is a very scary lineup. You've got good dives, you've got big CCs from Kayzeepi and reminiscent on that Julian as well. To a certain point, even A1, A2, and now Slate, they're gonna end off the draft with that with Adammir. Slate, this draft looks very iffy, but I've seen them using very iffy drafts against strong drafts before. It all boils down to Seilah on the assassination. So Team Flash, Kayzeepi needs to try to open up the map even more right now, because knowing Seilah has known to be hiding in those pesky bushes, busting down members one by one. If Flash gets tunnel vision, they will get punished. So ladies and gentlemen, this is gonna be a very spicy match coming up on both these two teams.
I would be expecting something big coming up for these two teams. I will, of course, weigh in what I feel about these hero lineup once we have entered into the land of Dawn. But ladies and gentlemen, let us get into game for Flash versus Slate, game number 1 for today's games. Who's going to be the one to come up on top, and who's going to be the one that will get themselves the first advantage? Ladies and gentlemen, let us dive right in.
Game number 1, gonna set the momentum here for Team Flash and Slate Esports. Slate currently sitting on top of the standings. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, Flash here on the bottom of the upper bracket so far. So this is, their game to prove. They need to be able to let the world know that they can come back strong in this match here. In the mid lane, already a bit of scuffle here between the two teams. JPL harassing Reminiscent, but still going to be able to walk away with the buff.
We're coming in to see both of the junglers from Flash and Slate to start off in a very usual positioning, starting off in their own purple buffs, except for the fact that Gear have decided to go straight into Flash's jungle and try to take a little bit of dominance, and understandably so, since they would want to have the Esmeralda to clear the waves as fast as possible and really regroup together with the team. That will be one of the main plays coming in from Slate. The Esmeralda will be as mobile as possible. They will, Adammir will want to proxy the lanes as much as possible as well, so that they will have constant success in winning team fights, because they need to give FMM, which is the 1-1, the perfect game, even if it's at the top lane or in the middle lanes. In the meantime, JPL unfortunately doesn't seem to be doing very well as the roam, as he tries to open up the map for his fellow team. His HP has dropped all the way down to 10% health and almost wanted to go home, but JPL rather instead decided to Jig Kundo in onto Reminiscent to put a little bit more chip damage.
Yeah, but even though, they didn't seem to get that much out of that fight, they've actually really bought so much time for the team, right? Forced a rotation from Flash, and they're slightly up in the gold lead here, which is important coming up with this next objective here, the first objective of the game actually, the first turtle, and you can see that Gear is already 1 level ahead of Reminiscent, not forgetting he is a Bowman, so he's going to be able to secure that a little more quickly. In the mid lane, they're just zoning out even more. Team Team Flash from just advancing in their own lanes.
Now, for both of these teams, right, Flash and Slate, they both have a rather different play style, especially when it comes down to team fight. Slate, understandably, would want to go to a lot more towards the front to back. They do have a very tanky front line when it comes down to the Bowman, the Esmeralda, as well as to a certain extent Cho. Cho can definitely dive over to the back lines and really disrupt Pokemon. That is if Pokemon is even there. But the main thing is to really lock down Reminiscent just so that he doesn't get into the face of FMM. FMM really gotta have to lock down onto certain someone and to really just point out every single one of that weakness points. That is the one of the main ways that SLT for Slate, they gotta have to play this. They need to avoid any kinds of aggressive mechanisms from Flash, any kinds of lockdown, and really give MMM the safest lane possible. But surprisingly, Flash is actually playing in a very passive way. No one is really going up to the top lane, except for now, where Julian actually have decided to go up to the top lane. We have two fights going on, both in different places. One in top lane, and one in bottom lane. But unfortunately, Slate is going to be the one that have gotten themselves the first blood. Redeem your code down below. Almost immediately, right? Neck and neck and almost the same time. So unfortunately for Flash, right as I called their passiveness, they decided to go aggressive, but not in the best play.
Yeah, I think Flash was trying to, shut down FMM a little bit. You mentioned, right, FMM, he would need a little bit of babysitting. They had been left alone for a while, I think, the top lane duo on the gold side. But the gank by Reminiscent onto the top didn't quite work out. I think JPL was there to rotate as well and respond in kind. So Slate managing to get both of these gangs in the top and in the middle and emerging victorious in those small fights. So looking at the lead right now, they're slowly chalking that up, and that's not looking good for Flash because, Reminiscent with that Julian, you're pretty early as well. And the fact that you have to compete with gear on a Bowman with a Demon Slayer emblem, that's going to make his life so difficult.
And unfortunately, the thing when it comes down to Flash is that when it comes down to their skirmishes, they aren't exactly amazing. When it comes down to team fights, yes, I would say that the team fight is definitely a lot better. But when it comes down to skirmishes, that is going to be the biggest problem. Because if Team Flash, even if Reminiscent or even if Lolita were to go up to the top lane and really try to deal with the 1-1, yes, they will have certain angles of success. But if it's just Reminiscent going up alone, I don't think that he will be able to do quite much, considering the fact that, well, FMM, he can just second skill away. But in the meantime, we gotta hold that thought down in the bottom lane as Slate, they immediately went into the opponent's face, invaded in their lower quadrant, and did quite a number on Team Flash, which is not ideal at all.
It is not at all for sure. I mean, to be invaded in your own jungle and getting two team members dead on top of that, the only consolation Flash has is they managed to let Pokemon farm a little bit up top. Even then, he didn't get that first tier turret, so it's not like they have any more map control out of that. And Slate Esports on top of that, they have taken another turtle, so that's already 2 in their name so far. 0-4, and Team Slate, they have got 4,000 gold advantage on top of Team Flash. Not the best way to start off, but hey, to be fair, Team Flash, they do have quite a lineup for the late stages of the game. I wouldn't be too surprised if Team Flash is able to hold it out. They should be able to win. As you can pretty much see in the keys to victory for Slate, they need to ensure that Team Flash do not get into the late stages of the game. That is the most important one. Team Flash has been constantly invading over to Team Flash, and this is the second time in a row that they have lost the purple buff. Not exactly the best case scenario, I gotta have to say. Team Flash gotta have to find better ways to open up the map and even have Lolita try to push the members from Slate away. They really have to wait, right? I mean, for Flash, it's a waiting game because they need Pokemon's farm. Reminiscent is also behind at this moment, so it's really difficult to take team fights. And remember the key to victory, Alpha V9 also needs to farm. So far, Flash has been choked out in every single lane. FMM on the bottom side, though.
I don't think that it's gonna be that big of a deal. FMM definitely do have some gold to his name, but not exactly ahead of Tempo. I would believe that Gear is the one that is ahead of Tempo, and whenever he wants to go for a kill, he will. And now that he's right in the face of Alpha V9, he pushed him all the way. And now the first tier defense turret will go down to the hands of Gear. FMM understandably will be rotating back to the rotating to the top lane to get and secure a lot more farm. In the meantime, the Minon Blast actually lands right in the face of FMM. Caught him completely unguarded and with his pants down.
I think he overstayed his welcome just
Definitely
a little
did.
bit. Yeah, and he was left alone there as well, so not a great place to be. Gonna take a look at the items so far. FMM already having the Corrosion Scythe as well as the Demon Hunter Sword up. Really, Pokemon trying to keep up with the farm here, but not as much. Items turtle though.
A1, A2 already dropped to all the way down low, but surprisingly still managed to get himself away. The lethal counter will be the last thing that he would do before he exits the battlefield. As Pokemon, he did try to put a little bit more damage over to the side of Team Slate, but that wasn't as conclusive enough. There isn't much of an impact just yet, as he is definitely below a farm as compared to FMM. And right after he went in for the fight, he decided to go back to the top lane, and he might be in some grave danger. And as you can see, down he goes. I'm not too surprised.
My goodness, Pokemon, like you said, right, underfarmed and still being shut down. Gear 300 at this moment, going to top that off with another turtle. This is looking worse and worse for Team Flash. At least in the last game yesterday, they had the early game lead. They had the early to the mid game lead, and they weren't choked out as much. So it feels right now as if they're really counting on Pokemon to finally scale up, as well as Alpha V9, and then take like one of the late team fights, win those team fights, and then end the game.
Understandably, the win condition for the side of Team Flash really is all in the pockets of Pokemon, but his positioning is gonna be very important. In speaking of positioning, immediately Reminiscent, which is the jungler, the jungler, immediately going down, and so is A1, A2. The frontline damage dealers, the magical damage from the team has already been annihilated. As such, Flash have decided to put themselves all the way down to the bottom lane. Alpha V9 trying to bring down the ballistas, but I don't think that is going to do much for Slate, because they can come back down and destroy the turret anytime. They are just going to buy as much time as they can, and that understandably is what Flash will want to do as much as possible.
Yeah, we're gonna see the instant replay coming right up here on the bottom side jungle. You can see the kick onto Reminiscent. Luminum Blast just not being able to help him out there. That's the only thing that can stop them right now. And just Slate being so obnoxious. They have so much space to go deep into the jungle. Flash!
JPL immediately went straight in for the Widow Dragon onto the Kayzeepi, but unfortunately he's going to be the first one to be eliminated from the team fight from the side of Team Slate. The rest of the members from Slate, they are still going to be A-okay, while Team Flash have got 2% taken down and two of the most important players as well, position 1 and position 2, while Team Slate only a position 5 is taken down. So even if Slate would want to get back into the action, they will.
Slate just hanging around the mid lane now, you know, threatening to take this down as well. The thing about Slate's draft is it is so comfort for them, you know. Seilah with the Kagura, even though Flash looks scary, the Slate with comfort picks is pretty scary too.
The damage coming from Gear is definitely starting to scale down. He wouldn't be able to do quite much from this point onwards. But he will be tanky, and he does have pure damage, or rather true damage, on his lethal counter. The rest of the damage really lies onto FMM as well as Seilah, and perhaps even onto Adammir just by a little bit. And speaking of gold, and speaking of, you know, positions, Gear is currently topping the chart at 7,900 gold, and FMM at 7,300, 7,400 gold. So they are definitely ahead of the curve, every single one of them. While Pokemon slowly climbing up the ranks with 6,800 gold. He's not too far. They just have to be a little bit more greedy and really just buy as much time as they can. Because honestly, this is not a lost hope for the members from Flash just yet. In the meantime, Luminum Blast lands right on top of Adammir. He escapes with just a sliver, while Pokemon immediately went in for a Blazing Duet to secure the escape route for themselves, as that is going to discourage Slate from moving in.
They're so grouped up right now, right? And that was Flash's chance trying to take one member down for Slate to make this Lord fight a little easier for them so that it will be a 4v5. But they invested so much, a Luminum Blast and the Blazing Duet to get away as well, that this looks like it's going to be tough for them. So Slate taking the higher ground once again.
Pokemon is currently trying to put himself in a better position, but fortunately, immediately gets knocked out by Seilah, and the rest of the members coming from Slate, they're just going to be flowing right into the hearts of Flash. Reminiscent now trying to go head-to-head against Adammir, as Adammir pushes every single one of them out of the Lord's Pit, allowing Team Slate to immediately get themselves the Lord and secure themselves the objective to prepare themselves for the GG push.
Yeah, I mean, you can see just Slate, you upping the game here, you know, just all out aggression on them. The moment Flash tries to go in, they stop all means of them trying to do that. The only consolation probably that Flash had was that they pushed the lanes up top a little bit. So, well, Slate had to deal with that. You can see the Lord being stuck up top there, but it's not going to deter them in any way. Slate is just focusing on the mid as well as the bottom lanes here.
It is not going to be a problem. In fact, it is actually pretty good for them. The Lord is just pretty much taking his time onto the lanes at the top, and because of all the lanes that comes in, they will be able to stagger the top lane a little bit and allow the next wave in the middle lane and the bottom lane to push in. As such, all three of these lanes are just going to come in together as a three-pronged attack, making things really tough for Team Flash to even defend. Even though they did not manage to defend the top lane, bottom and middle lane is going to be the next thing they're going to have to look out for. As you can see, bottom lane's first inhibitor turret is dropped all the way down to what, 15%?
Yeah, I mean, it's barely there, right? It's
Barely
on
there.
the last
Barely
stretches
hanging on.
of its, last legs of its health here. So they only have the mid inhibitor count on Flash. Really in dire situation here. And bottom Kayzeepi.
It is really comes down to the weakness points, but unfortunately the Flicker plus Luminum Blast combo is just going to be stunning down here as well as FMM, but unfortunately Alpha B9, he wanted to brush himself right in the face of FMM. He really wants to bring him down, but unfortunately wasn't able to just bring him down just yet, as he did manage to pop the Wind of Nature. The rest of the members just going to flow itself down onto Masha, being the last person alive, the tankiest person in the team. They all went in and gave him no chance of survival.
The Slate is actually going around the corner now, going by the top route where the minions are. They get Pokemon, the lone man standing. The knockup will come through and the damage onto the core. That's going to be enough to secure game number 1 in favor of Slate Esports.
Now that was what I call a decisive victory in the name of Slate. They definitely knew what they want to do. They do have very good answers to what they